What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're going to jump in with a bunch of Destiny 2 Forsaken stuff. So we have some new information about patrols and a complete rework to the kind of milestone system for the Flashpoint. There's going to be some pretty different stuff there, including hunting down kind of high value targets, a complete rework to a bunch of lost sectors, some new systems, and wanted bounties that will come from the Drifter. This will be kind of like an endgame version of the Baron hunts that we'll do earlier on in the campaign. And these are going to have their own pretty awesome loot, apparently. We'll talk about some of the weapons and gear that you can get from that. We have details about how you'll unlock new subclass branches in Forsaken. This will involve a quest to get the new supers, and we have details about how some of the supers will then be restricted until later in the endgame. We're also going to talk about decoy exotics, a new PvP map on the Dreaming City, and a few other things. So as always, I hope you guys do enjoy the video. If you do, a rating down below is very much appreciated. But for now, let's jump straight into it. So starting out, yesterday I did make a video breaking down all of the new supers in Forsaken. We got some new gameplay of all of them, breakdown of the abilities and subclass trees, which you can check out. I'll link that down below. But in terms of how we actually get those subclasses and unlock them, Game Informer say at the beginning of the Forsaken campaign, players choose which new subclass branch for their class they want to chase first. Once they've made their way to the Dreaming City, they can find additional quests that will unlock the other two subclass branches, similar to the way unlocking additional subclasses works in the original Destiny 2 campaign. So some useful information if you're curious about that. When we start out at the beginning of Forsaken, we will get to choose which new branch we want to work on, and then we're essentially going to be locked out of some of the subclass upgrades for a little bit until we get to the Dreaming City. They do say there will be additional quests there to unlock the other subclass branches, but Scott Taylor and Steve Cotton had previously spoken about how they're going to roll some of that stuff out over time. So essentially, because of the way the Dreaming City works and the content cycle there, they suggested that it could be a couple of weeks until the next subclass would actually become available via that endgame content. So we'll have to see exactly how it pans out, but you get to pick one immediately. There will be additional quests to get the others later on. Bungie have done a complete rework of the kind of weekly milestone Flashpoint system and what we're going to see in some of the patrol spaces. So Game Informer say with Forsaken, by incorporating more activities into Flashpoint milestones as well as giving players new targets to chase, or more accurately hunt, Bungie hopes to alleviate some of the issues seen with the previous kind of weekly milestone for the Flashpoint. So they say the week that Forsaken launches, players will find the Flashpoint milestone works a little bit differently. Rather than simply waiting for the distinct blue icon to start filling with orange on their maps as they hop between public events, players will also be able to venture into lost sectors and complete patrols while they wait to earn completion percentage for the Flashpoint milestone. They go on to say, but making pre-existing activities more enticing is just the start. Players will also find themselves on the hunt for many of the outlaws who escaped from Prison of Elders, even after the end of Forsaken's campaign. So a bunch of these outlaws, they have escaped from the Prison of Elders just like the Barons that we fight in the main Forsaken campaign. Game Informer say they can now be found in nearly every activity. And this will also include every location. So they say they can appear as part of a public event, as a high value target roaming in the world, mini bosses in strikes, during gambit matches, and as more difficult bosses in several of the currently available lost sectors. So some of the lost sectors have actually been completely reworked with new bosses. A couple of those are pretty interesting. One of them you may remember from back in House of Wolves. I'll talk about that in a moment. But this is going to tie into the Triumphs and the collection system. All of this stuff will be tracked inside of both of those systems. But they say the fallen leader allied with the last city, the Spider, has a personal interest in these outlaws and will offer bounties to undertake that will offer a hint as to the outlaw's location. They say these bounties will cost you but pay handsomely if you complete them, and there will be 4 different tiers of bounties for players to take on, and each of them will cater to varying different power levels. So the first 3 tiers will have you travel to different locations to perform a variety of tasks, but the final tier will actually include a new kind of activity which is called the Outlaw Lost Sector. So if you pick up the highest tier of bounty from the Spider, you're going to activate an objective to track down one of the most powerful outlaws, and once you're in the right location, you're going to have to fight through a much more difficult version of a Lost Sector, including 1 new boss encounter with an outlaw per destination. So there's going to be a total of 6 new boss encounters across all of the destinations. So they actually have one of these bounties right here, and they're hunting the Silent Fang. Now, any of you guys who played in House of Wolves may remember that this is actually a bounty bounty that Petra would give you as well. So that's pretty interesting. Game Informer had previously said that one of the barons in the Forsaken story was actually responsible for making the House of Wolves extinct, so potentially there's going to be some kind of story there. Of course, the fact that the Silent Fang actually survived may be down to us, the Guardians, because we did collect this bounty back in House of Wolves, and then presumably Petra or the Awoken actually imprisoned the Silent Fang in the Prison of Elders, and then of course they have escaped inside of the riot in Forsaken's campaign. But there are also going to be barriers throughout different points inside of Lost Sectors. They also show the Titan Lost Sector, the famous one used for the faction rally farms, and this is where they're using the Cerberus +1, which is the new exotic auto rifle. So I think all of that sounds really cool. The only thing they haven't really spoken about would be the reward systems inside of Lost Sectors, or exactly what we're going to earn from the bounties from the Spider. Of course, the Spider is likely to have his own set of loot, so maybe there'll be weapons that you can buy from him, but maybe you'll get randomly rolled versions of some of the gear when you complete the bounties, perhaps some other specific stuff in the rotation. We have seen a bunch of weapons that look like they will drop from the Spider, so there's the Ether Doctor auto rifle right here, and it says control the supply, and of course this line comes from the Spider himself. We've also seen shotguns, hand cannons, and a bunch of other weapons that appear to be in the set, and also right here we see a Warlock using the pulse rifle from the set. This is the one that I've mentioned is a 4-round burst according to the ammo counter. To my knowledge, we don't have 4-round burst pulse rifles in Destiny 2 at the moment. We did, of course, in Destiny 1, but even the low rate of fire Hake ones are 3-round bursts as far as I know. And then of course there is Vigilance Wing, and that one is actually a 5-round burst. But it's something interesting to note. In some of the Game Informer gameplay right here, we can see that they're hunting the Trickster, but on the ground we do see a pile of exotic Engrams, which is pretty interesting. It's not something we actually get to see that much. And when they actually get to the Engrams, there is a prompt right here, and I'm pretty sure it says pick up Engram. So I'm not entirely sure what this is going to be. I mean, presumably it's not just a free exotic out in the wild. The Trickster though is an interesting character. They do booby trap things like heavy ammo. So little spoiler alert, but this could actually be kind of a booby trap. If you do happen to remember this though, definitely when you're playing through, go let your friends pick it up first for some major lols potentially. I'd be curious to hear what you guys think it could be outside of that though. Also, I just said major lols, what the hell? But we saw a few other pretty interesting things in some of the gameplay as well. Bungie had previously hinted at a crashed hive ship in the Tangled Shore, and during some of the gameplay where you see the new Solar Titan Super, you can actually see that they're aboard this ship, and it is pretty similar to the Dreadnought. It is essentially identical in terms of design language and everything like that. We got to see it very briefly from the outside as well. Maybe this was actually from the kind of fleet of ships that was with the Dreadnought back in the Taken King, but also very briefly we get a look at a new PvP map, this one actually housed in the Dreaming City, and I believe they're also playing the new game mode called Breakout. You can see that they're actually hacking a vault. This is going to be a new competitive mode, interestingly. Very curious to learn more about it. It looks like it could potentially be fun. The map itself looks really cool as well, but absolutely you should check out more of Game Informer's exclusive coverage. I'm always linking that down below in these videos. But now let's round up a few bits of information. A lot of people have been asking about which materials, tokens, inventory items, and things like that will move forward into year 2, what is going to be useful, anything that might vanish, and all of that kind of stuff. And this has been all over Reddit, you know, quite a bit, and I've had a lot of comments as well, understandably. But DMG said once we have the info locked, we'll get it to you, so we're gonna have to wait a little bit longer. He previously said though that to his knowledge, nothing was likely to become completely irrelevant, but we will have to wait for official details. Somebody asked, hoping to find out for the purposes of the year 1 collections kiosk, does the Postmaster count as having obtained an item? So if I delete something from the Postmaster, will it still count in the collection? And Steve Cotton said, yes, the Postmaster counts. And he confirms that this stuff was being tracked from just before the launch of Warmind. So that's definitely worth bearing in mind. There's been a lot of conversation about having triple XP or triple rank points inside of the competitive playlist. So this would be the glory rank. And folks have been asking Kevin Yanis, especially on Twitter, whether this could ever be a thing. And he does say glory is going to move to be your skill rank, which means for it to mean anything, earning it must be consistent and fair for everyone. And while I think it would be nice to have, you know, triple points for a weekend or whatever inside of that playlist, it would definitely be good if you had the time to jump in, but it does pose a bit of an issue when it is such a skill-focused playlist. You could have folks that have worked for weeks and weeks and weeks to kind of get up to a certain point. Of course, if they launch an event like this, there are going to be a number of people who can't actually play at that time, so it is a pretty unbalanced system. However, I am totally for more of the Valor rank triple XP points thing that they do. I actually think they could put it in the Last Iron banner as well. I think it would be fantastic and you'd see a lot of people jumping in. But guys, that is going to summarize the video for now. Later on today, we're going to get This Week at Bungie, and it could be a pretty juicy one. We of course are missing quite a few details for the update which comes next week on the 17th. That's the Tuesday reset. We haven't heard anything about bounties coming to the game. There are other systems that we're light on details for, and Bungie had also suggested a potential update to the roadmap at some point early in July. Plus we're pretty close to Solstice of Heroes and things like that, so there could be more details. I will keep you guys posted in a few hours time when that will probably drop. But if you've enjoyed this one, guys, a like is very much appreciated below. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit subscribe and turn on those notifications so you don't miss a video. As always, I very much appreciate you guys tuning in. But for now, whatever you get up to, I hope you have an awesome day.